I wanted to have to watch this video covering what the soft power is, because there's a lot of people who I think are convinced that, just like USAID, I think this is probably going to talk a lot about USAID, but essentially USAID and for the United States of America, except for what USAID does domestically for our country, USAID is an expression of soft power in the United States. Trump loves referencing whatever the $50 million in condoms to Hamas, which is total bullshit. Obviously, there were condoms. There was like a purchase for condoms to go to Gaza, but it wasn't Gaza in the Palestinian region. It was Gaza in Mozambique, and it's to combat AIDS, which is like obviously something that I think can help America's standing abroad in the eyes of other parts of the world, so on and so forth. That is essentially a form of soft power. It's not that America does these things, giving money to, people love to bring up like whatever the US paying for like a drag show somewhere or some shit. I don't remember all these claims. Some of them are probably fake as well, because Elon Musk lies about a ton of shit. But at the same time, there are reasons that we do things that aren't just out of the kindness of our hearts. We maintain a standing in the world, even with soft power, for a good reason. It is so that we can continue to be. And again, we just talked about how it looks like that we're seeing the breakdown. The US is cutting itself off from other countries and essentially isolating ourselves. That is what we are actively doing by having an America First policy, by doing tariffs that are stupid and unnecessary, causing trade wars that are stupid and unnecessary, by literally backstabbing our own allies, by promoting dictators and autocrats. Doing all these things is putting up a big, dumb wall around the United States where others aren't going to want. It's not that we need to keep others out, because they're not even going to want to deal with us. They're not going to want to be a part of what we're doing here, because it's so isolationist and one-sided and stupid. And that's all because of Donald Trump. So I wanted to watch a video on soft power, because MAGA people seem to have trouble understanding why the fuck we would send condoms to another country. So I figured that this would give us some context for that.
Welcome to Impartial Points and our explainer on soft power. When we think about global influence, military power often comes to mind. The ability to project strength through weapons, warships, and military alliances is known as hard power. But what about influence without force? This is where soft power comes in. Soft power is the ability to shape world affairs through culture, values, diplomacy, and economic influence rather than coercion or military action. And for decades, the United States has been the world's leading practitioner of soft power. In this video, we'll explore what soft power is, how it developed in modern history, the ways the US uses it, and why it matters. By the end, you'll see how soft power can be just as powerful as military might in shaping the global order. What is soft power? The concept of soft power was first introduced by Joseph Nye, a political scientist and former Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs. Hard power versus soft power. Hard power relies on force and coercion, military strength, economic sanctions, and threats. Soft power relies on persuasion and attraction, culture, diplomacy, and economic appeal. Example of hard power. The U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003 was an example of military power being used to force a regime change. Example of soft power. The spread of American music, movies, and democratic ideals leading to the fall of authoritarian regimes in the late 20th century. The three pillars of soft power. Cultural influence. Movies, music, sports, and education create positive perceptions of the U.S. Political values, democracy, human rights, and free speech attract people to the American system. Foreign policy, aid, diplomacy, and alliances help strengthen America's reputation abroad. Soft power allows the U.S. to win allies, spread influence, and achieve foreign policy goals without firing a shot. The modern history of U.S. soft power. The United States has used soft power throughout its history, but it became a major tool during the 20th and 21st centuries. Post-World War II, the birth of American soft power. After World War II, the U.S. emerged as a global superpower and used soft power to shape the world order. The Marshall Plan. The U.S. provided over $13 billion to help rebuild Europe after World War II, fostering goodwill and preventing Soviet expansion. Hollywood and American culture, American films, jazz music, and the spread of English as a global language made the U.S. a cultural powerhouse. The United Nations and Bretton Woods system. The U.S. led the creation of global institutions like the UN, World Bank, and International Monetary Fund to stabilize world affairs. The Cold War era, winning hearts and minds. The Cold War was not just a battle of weapons, it was a battle of ideas. The U.S. and the Soviet Union competed for influence across the world. The Voice of America and Radio Free Europe. The U.S. broadcast news into communist countries, exposing people to Western ideas. The space race and U.S. innovation. America's moon landing in 1969 showcased scientific progress, making the U.S. a symbol of innovation. The Peace Corps. Established by President John F. Kennedy, the Peace Corps sent volunteers to help developing nations, promoting goodwill. By the late 20th century, the Soviet Union's lack of cultural appeal, closed society, and economic struggles contributed to its downfall, while U.S. soft power continued to expand. The post-Cold War and 21st century. After the Cold War, soft power remained a key tool in U.S. global strategy. The globalization of American brands. Companies like McDonald's, Nike, Apple, and Coca-Cola became international symbols of American culture. Higher education. The U.S. became the top destination for international students, with institutions like Harvard, MIT, and Stanford leading global research. Social media and technology. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Google became the digital face of American influence. However, the 21st century also saw challenges to U.S. soft power, such as wars in the Middle East, growing global skepticism of U.S. policies, and the rise of competing soft power nations like China. How the U.S. uses soft power today. Cultural exports. Hollywood and streaming platforms, movies, and TV shows shape how the world perceives the U.S. Example: Marvel movies and Netflix shows are viewed by millions worldwide, creating a shared cultural experience. Music and entertainment. American pop stars like Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, and Drake influence global music trends. Sports and events. The NBA, NFL, and Olympic Games spread American culture to international audiences. Higher education and scientific. One administration, the U.S. The Paris Climate Agreement. Even after withdrawing under one administration, coalitions works through organizations, diplomacy, and global institutions. The U.S. works through organizations like NATO, the UN, and the WHO to build global coalitions. Example: the Paris Climate Agreement. Even after withdrawing under one administration, the U.S. later rejoined to restore leadership in climate action. Foreign aid and humanitarian efforts. U.S. aid provides billions in economic and humanitarian aid to developing nations. Example: the U.S. provided billions in COVID-19 vaccine donations to help countries fight the pandemic. Technology and innovation. The U.S. dominates tech innovation, with companies like Google, Amazon, and Tesla setting industry standards worldwide. What would happen without U.S. soft power? If the U.S. abandoned soft power strategies, several consequences could arise.
Well, this is important. And I don't so something I wanted to mention is I think that there's some soft power that, as long as we don't completely fall apart, which is certainly possible, there's some forms of soft power that I don't think are ever going to go away. Like the influence in the media. I referenced that at the beginning of the stream, that we have a American influence in media is still immense in the form of Hollywood. Hopefully Hollywood can continue to pump out what they pump out. If Trump goes full autocrat, then they may change what types of movies Hollywood's allowed to make, and then that could fuck us over in that regard too. I hope we don't abandon all types of soft power, but there's a chance we're going that direction under the current administration, and I don't like it. But specifically, I'm curious about what types of the types of soft power that we do seem to be abandoning, which is things like USAID and withdrawing from international coalitions. That's what I'm really curious about, what the ramifications are going to be of that, right? That's what I want to know. Big time.
Declining global influence. Nations might turn to China, Russia, or regional powers for leadership.
Yes.
Alliances like NATO and many trade agreements could weaken. Loss of economic and cultural leadership. American brands, universities, and tech firms could lose their global appeal, reducing U.S. economic power. Increased reliance on military force. Without soft power, the U.S. might depend more on military strength to maintain influence, increasing global tensions. Weakening of democratic ideals. Without cultural and diplomatic engagement, authoritarian regimes could strengthen, reducing global support for democracy and human rights.
Indeed.
Soft power is not
increased reliance on military force. Who is currently in the world relying on military force, I wonder, because their power is diminishing? Who is that? Why, it's Russia! Wow! It's because their influence is diminishing. And now siding with them is probably going to put us on the same path. Wow.
And and that's where, like, maybe we do invade Greenland and Greenland and Canada, right? The Panama Canal. Maybe we do these crazy things, and maybe we continue down this stupid route of becoming a totalitarian, like it's a totalitarian nation. Insanity.
Not just a luxury. It's a strategic necessity for maintaining American leadership in a complex world.
About common sense, and then they miss it here.
In summary,
yes,
the United States is more than just a military superpower. It is a cultural, economic, and diplomatic force that influences the world in ways both visible and subtle. By leveraging soft power, the U.S. builds alliances, shapes global narratives, and promotes values that attract people toward its vision of the world. Understanding soft power helps us see that influence isn't just about strength. It's about inspiration, connection, and leadership. We hope you found this discussion informative and insightful.
I really like that they simplified it. I didn't expect it to be a video that was so simplistic. It was a little dry, little boring. That's the only critique I would have, is that I did get to a point where I was like wanting to nod off, but it's okay.
It was probably designed for MAGA. I mean, it's for, dumb people. They like boring speeches, apparently, when it comes to Trump. So,
yeah, because they'll watch him talk for 90 minutes straight about literally nothing. So
yeah. So they apparently like boring and stupid and simple, because that's what they are.
They might, but yeah. So there are certain parts of the United States soft power, I guess, portfolio, whatever you want to call it, the variety of ways in which we exert soft power. There's some of those that may never change. Like, Hollywood movies may not really go away if we keep things from completely collapsing. Brands like Coca-Cola, Nike, all these huge brands that have this huge global presence, they're probably not going to go away anytime soon, so on and so forth. So I think that it's important that we keep all types of soft power, and I think USAID counts to that. But as long as we don't lose those other things, and as long as we can, again, retain our election process, that's the whole premise of us getting out of this rut that we're in as a nation, is that assuming we can still have a normal, free, fair election in 2026 for the midterms, and especially in 2028 for prez. If they successfully hijack our election process and are able to force a Republican autocrat into like a MAGA autocrat into office, it's bad news, everybody. It is bad news at that point, because then all forms of soft power will go away, because they will start trying to say you can't, Hollywood can't do movies that feature anything DEI related or woke or blah, 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 whatever they want to say. whatever they want to gripe about, and we will lose our influence, because we will see people leave the country en masse. Hopefully all the best actors in the world will leave the country en masse and go do work in other countries, right? And that's what we'll see like a global media manifest, so to speak, where you have, oh goodness, so and so went and did a movie with, I don't know, somebody in the UK, and this person went and recorded a movie in I don't know, like Australia with somebody, right? Who knows? But the Hollywood could potentially lose its grip on sort of global media, but I sincerely hope it doesn't come to that. That to me would be very bad. So I think that there are certain forms of soft power that temporarily we can afford to let slip. Things like USAID, because Elon Musk went and fucked with it and all that shit. But then I think that there are forms of soft power that if we ever lost it, it would just continue to be the beginning of the end. It would continue to look like the end times are near.